All right, so following up with my React videos, I want to now look at how we can create a simple landing page using React. So in the previous video, I would have looked at how we can integrate Tailwind CSS in React. So we're going to utilize Tailwind again for this video demonstration and just build out a simple React landing page. So, all right, so pretty much starting from scratch, I'm going to be using Vite as well to assist with the creation of our React application. So the command I'm going to type here is npm, and by the way, I am using VS Code, which might be obvious, and the terminal in VS Code. Right, so it's npm create Vite latest. Right, so once it gives the option to enter a project name, you can go ahead and name your project. So we can give the project a name. I'm just going to call it landing page. Now we're asked to select a framework, and we're working with React, so I'll select React. The variant will be TypeScript, so I'll select TypeScript, and that will scaffold the project for us. All right, now I'm going to cd into the landing page project folder. So let's do a cd. Alright, so once we change directory into the landing page folder, I'm going to do npm install to install the necessary dependencies. Alright, so the dependencies have been installed without any vulnerabilities. So let us just explore our folder structure, right? So we have our dependencies here under node modules. There's a public folder where you can place things like images. There is a source folder where you can find your app.tsx file, and this is the file that we will be manipulating to produce or to create our landing page. There's also an app.css file, which I'll remove shortly because I'll be using Tailwind CSS for this particular demonstration. Just to see how to set up Tailwind CSS within your project, you can go back, or you can go and check out the previous video that I did in regards to including Tailwind CSS in your React project. Also, this index.css file, I'll be removing this and importing Tailwind CSS directly into this file. All right, so I'll go ahead now and start this development server for this particular project. npm run dev, that should start the server, and it is serving up our project on local host. So let's see what that looks like. I mean, again, if you work with React before, then you know what the out of the box web page will look like once you are using Vite. All right, so this is us out of the box Vite plus React project. It's running on localhost port 5173. All right, so this is just a default application, which we'll be making changes to shortly. All right, so I'm going to stop the server by pressing Ctrl+C on my Windows device, and I'm just going to quickly set up Tailwind CSS. All right, now just to give you a brief walkthrough, I'm going to be using the Tailwind documentation. But as I said, I did a previous video where I would have shown how to integrate or how to set up or install Tailwind CSS directly into your React project. Right, so if we are following along with the documentation on Tailwind CSS, it basically requires us to go ahead and install Tailwind, as well as include the plugins necessary for Tailwind, and we are set. Once we import Tailwind, we are pretty much set. So it's basically 3 steps to set up Tailwind within our project, and this is what I'm going to do. Again, you can always check out the video that I did on this. Alright, so for the Tailwind part, I will just speed through it so as not to draw the video out too much. Alright, so in your terminal, install Tailwind. Once that is done, we can make the modification to the necessary CSS files. Alright, so Tailwind has been installed directly into our project. Now I'm going to go ahead and modify the vite.config.ts file in order to utilize Tailwind CSS. Alright, so we add the import for Tailwind CSS, and then next I need to go ahead and add the Tailwind plugin. Right, the Tailwind plugin. Right, and that's basically it for this part of it. Alright, so next I need to go to my main CSS file, which is the index.css file, which is found under sources. Well, found under the source folder. I'll remove all of this and do an import. Right, so alright, so once we import our Tailwind CSS into our main CSS folder, which is index.css, we can go ahead and either delete this app.css file, or just remove the content altogether. Right, so that is us. We are good to go, and Tailwind is now a part of our application. What we can do, just to see that the default CSS is no longer being used, and to ensure that Tailwind has been set up, we can do npm run dev again, just to see what the project is now producing, or what the website is now looking like. Alright, so because we would have removed the default CSS, this is what we are now seeing. So let's go ahead now and fully build out our landing page. Alright, so I'm going to go to my app.tsx file and basically remove everything from here, right? Because we no longer need any of this. This is just the default content. So we can remove this altogether, delete that, and if we should go back and check, we are working with a blank canvas, so we can paint whatever I want to paint onto this. Alright, so first up, I am going to say that I am importing React from the React library. I am now going to set up a component using function component. So I'm going to make this a constant. And I'm going to call this up. So it'll be React dot FC, and this FC is telling us that we are setting up a function component. You can utilize either a class component or a function component, but in modern React, the function component is preferred, right? So let's set this up equal to, so what we're actually creating is a function, as the name suggests. Now, within this function, we need to return something. And what we are going to return is the content, or the content of the landing page. So for example, I'll have an image and some text. Now we're placing this inside of our pair of parentheses following the return keyword. So the first thing we'll have here is a div. All right. Now what we're doing is writing what you refer to as JSX, which is basically mixing React specific syntax with HTML, right? So it's not seen as pure JavaScript or pure TypeScript. Again, some persons are familiar with the fact that TypeScript eventually gets converted to JavaScript to be executed and so forth. So what we're using is TypeScript, but it uses components of JavaScript, for those who are familiar with what TypeScript is and its relationship to JavaScript, right? Right, so let's add an header and a nav bar. So I'll speed up this part a little bit as well. All right, so far we would have returned our nav bar, which we place inside of our header tag. Again, it's the same HTML tags that you are familiar with. Let's just see what this is looking like. Oh, all right, so still blank. We have an error, and it's because we haven't completed what we want this to look like just yet. All right, so next I'm going to add a main section to this. So let's do a main, and this will be our main content area. So again, for this, I'm going to add a div. And let me just speed this part up as well. Alright, so I went ahead and added an H1 inside the main, a button just to, you can click to start now if you want more information and so forth, depending on what you want to use your landing page for, and another button for persons who would want to sign up. Right now, again, our website is still blank, and the reason for this is we haven't exported the function that we created. Alright, so the start of our function, we call this app. Right now, we need to go ahead and export it. So I'm going to go ahead and say export default, and it's called app. We are currently error free. Alright, so this is the content on our landing page. It's not looking all that lovely, but we'll fix that shortly with some CSS. I want to also go ahead and add an image to this. Alright, so I want an image that I'm going to place inside my public folder. So the public folder, you can use that for public resources, for example, images, icons, and so forth. I'm just going to place this inside my public folder so I can use it, right? So I'm going to place the image right here. Now let me just put a comment just to say image section, right? Alright, so let's use our image tag to add the image. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and place the image inside of a div. So let me just say div. And let me say img. So same regular image tag that you are used to in CSS. Use our source. Set this equal to slash. I'm calling the image demo illustration. So demo. Alright, so we would have included our image. Let me just put some alternative text. Let me just say demo. Image. Alright, so let's refresh again and see what our, okay, so this is what our landing page is currently looking like. So let's now go ahead and add some CSS using the Tailwind CSS classes. Alright, so just to make reference to the Tailwind documentation, any class you want to add, you can pretty much consult the documentation and see the recommendations. So if you want to add background color, it basically gives you a walkthrough of how you add color to text and all of that. So any class that you want to utilize from Tailwind CSS, you can go ahead and use the documentation. I don't think, well, I'm not expecting you to memorize the different classes. So again, the documentation is there for you to utilize. Alright, so I am definitely going to use the documentation to pull the classes that I want to add to my landing page. Alright, so let's first start off with sizing the first div that we have right here. Alright, so I want to set the sizing or the size for this div. So with that, I am going to just briefly go to the documentation. Alright, so on the document, we are seeing a sizing section right here, and you can set the min width, min height, max width, and max height. So let me just click on the min width. So this is telling me that the min height is a utility for setting the minimum height of an element. So the minimum height that I want my element to be, I'm going to set that. Right, so let's go ahead and do so. Alright, so when you're working with CSS classes in React, you have to type class name. You can't just say class, because again, class is a separate concept, right? Alright, so let's set the min height of the screen. I would also want to set a background color. So let me do bg-white for the background color, and let me set the text to a shade of gray. So for that, I'll say text -gray, and let's say 800. Again, all of this, you can get it or get reference to these classes from the documentation. So this is what our CSS classes basically look like in Tailwind. I mean, different frameworks, different CSS libraries and frameworks, they have, ways in which they name their classes. All right, so let's see. All right, so no noticeable difference as yet, but as we go, hopefully it will start to look better. All right, so next up, I want to bold this text right here inside of our header. All right, so let me go ahead again and say class name, and let me make this flex, and also set a justify Alright, so I went ahead and I add a class to basically bold this, add some space, set the breakpoint for the text, and so forth. For the links in the nav, I set the over. When you over them, they will basically turn yellow. Otherwise, they'll keep their natural color of gray. So they'll keep this gray color. When we over, then the color will change to yellow. So that's what we have so far, right? So we can go ahead and see what that looks like in our browser. All right, so currently this is our nav bar, the only thing that would have been styled so far. So we are making progress. All right, so next I'm going to go ahead and style the main section of our landing page. All right, so I want it to be a case where this image is pushed to the right, and then these can be to the left, right? So the hero section will be pushed to the left, the image section will be pushed to the right, right? So let's go ahead and add some CSS to these. All right, so first off, this div right here containing this little wording or this text, as well as these buttons, this is what we want to be sent to the left, and then our image is to be sent to the right. Now, this div and the div containing the image, both of them can be found inside the main tag or the main element. So what I want to do is to ensure that the main element is first flexible and then it is divided into columns. So again, I'm going to say class name and then set this equal to flex and then do a flex column. All right. Let me speed this up a bit as well. All right, so I would have gone ahead and I would have added the necessary CSS to the main tag and then to the inner div tag. So the div tag that surrounds this H1 as well as, so the main div tag that surrounds the H1 and the button, I would have gone ahead and added some CSS classes to those to kind of just give it some spacing. And then for the button, I went ahead and added some CSS classes where the button will now be yellow. You can, when you hover over the button, then the shade of yellow will change. So naturally, well, without us hovering, it will be this shade of yellow. When we hover, then it will be this shade of yellow. The text on the button will be white, right? So we have that so far. So let's see what that looks like. All right, so we are making some progress. This is what we have so far. So it's just to, I mean, it's not looking too bad. We can add some CSS to the image as well, but I mean, for a quick little landing page, it's not looking too bad. All right, and for our image, the div tag, I went ahead and add some CSS as well. So it's pretty much looking relatively the same. The image, you might not notice it, but the image would have been resized a little bit. Now we can make this image smaller if we want to. So let's say we want to make the image small. We can go ahead and change this 1/2 value to, let's say, make it 1/4 and see what that looks like. So it's smaller. So if we want, we can make it that particular size. All right, so that is it basically in terms of creating our landing page. What I'll do next in terms of React is create a login form and then connect that login form to Firebase so we can use that to log in users. But for now, this is it. I'll make the code from the app.tsx file available to you. So if you want to, just copy it over and see what it looks like on your side, no problem. Also remember, I did a previous video that did a more detailed walkthrough of how to link Tailwind CSS to your React project. But for now, that is it.